Hi, my name is Taylor. I'm a trans man. This is my partner Madison, and we're currently going through the process of freezing my eggs so we can do reciprocal IVF. I began my medical transition a little over 3 years ago, and at the time, nobody had really informed me about fertility preservation and that it was something that I could pursue. Individually, I think we both always knew that we wanted to be parents. For me personally, I just didn't really know in what capacity I would be able to do that. But when I met Madison and we talked a little bit about family planning, she had told me about something that she'd always wanted to do, which was called reciprocal IVF.
So reciprocal IVF is reciprocal in vitro fertilization. Essentially for us, what that means is that we would extract Taylor's eggs, use donor sperm to create an embryo. That embryo would then be transferred to me and I would carry out a pregnancy. So a little bit of background about us. When we met, we very quickly fell in love and soon we were engaged. Along the way, we spoke a lot about family planning and we always intended to do reciprocal IVF. But all those conversations felt very hypothetical, like they were for the very far off future. Things suddenly felt very urgent when about a year ago, Taylor needed an emergency surgery to save his left ovary. At that time, his fertility was called into question, and it really put into perspective how important fertility preservation was, both for him as an individual and for us as a couple. Following Taylor's emergency surgery, we connected with a clinic that we thought was great on paper. They had a wonderful policy regarding other trans patients, and we were really excited to begin our journey. Unfortunately, when we got there, it was made very clear to us that their policy was in fact just that, a policy, some words on a website. We sort of walked in and experienced a couple immediate red flags. There were some moments of misgendering and really assumptions made about our relationship and about Taylor himself that really made the beginning stage very difficult.
I was expecting to feel out of place, and in a lot of ways, I definitely did. I knew that I was going to be navigating a system that wasn't necessarily built with people like me in mind. I think that was very clear. Even upon our first interaction in the clinic when I walked in and they addressed Madison as a patient instead of me.
All of that prompted us to actually switch clinics. Now we've sort of found a space that treats us really well, where we feel not only welcome, but included, and not necessarily as an odd case, but as just another couple building a family. That first appointment in that new space was really influential and kind of defined our fertility journey. It's a moment that really stayed with us because we truly felt like we were understood.
There was a brief period in time in which I almost decided that I didn't want to continue anymore with the process. So when we found the second clinic that we're with now, I think that moment will really stick with me as like a very sort of turning point in our fertility journey. And I finally felt like we had found a fertility space where I was respected and people weren't making assumptions about me, and they were very trans informed. And I think that we will both probably always remember that.
Our fertility journey so far, like many others, has not exactly been a linear or straight path. I think everyone has a different understanding of what parenthood looks like, and particularly for queer people, that image isn't exactly clear until you start navigating within those spaces. It's definitely been very exciting to finally begin this process. I think there's been a lot of ups and downs, but through it all, we've sort of been by each other's side, and navigating these beginning stages is very overall exciting.
I think as a trans person, there's a lot of layers. It's not only a medical process, but it's a very emotional process. It's a very physically demanding process. It's sort of a very dysphoria-inducing process. But I think ultimately, if we want to have a family, this is something that that's really important for us to do.
Our IVF is particularly exciting for us because it means we both get to play a role in the creation of our family. From the moment I saw a baby picture of Taylor, I knew that we had to use his eggs to create a baby. So it's a really exciting opportunity for us to do that.
Although I may not have known what our IVF was before meeting Madison, I am particularly excited to start this journey with her. I think I really love that we can both participate and have an active role in creating a child together, and I'm really excited to see how it turns out.
It's really been an honor to stand by Taylor during this process, and it's definitely brought us closer, particularly the moments of uncertainty. Your emergency surgery, calling your fertility into question, and when your health was sort of at risk, that was definitely a moment where we had to kind of rally as a couple and make some of those hypothetical future choices very real. It was definitely the start of our overall fertility journey and a real moment for us in our relationship.
I think this process has definitely changed a little bit how we communicate. I've never really been very open about my feelings, and I've had to do that a lot since starting this journey. But ultimately, I think it's made the process a lot easier to have Madison by my side and to help advocate for me. Or sometimes in the spaces, there's words that I'm not very comfortable using that she'll use on my behalf, or she can explain things sort of for me when I maybe don't feel comfortable doing so.
I think in the moment it's difficult to advocate for yourself when you're feeling a level of discomfort. So having a second person there that understands you and understands the nature of what's happening is really helpful.
When I began my medical transition, I actually wasn't informed that fertility preservation was something that I had the option to do. So for any trans person beginning the fertility journey, I'd really want to say, look into resources. There's information out there. It may be a little bit hard to find, but it's definitely worth it if it's something that you want to do. Don't feel stuck at any particular clinic. There's options. Make sure you advocate for yourself, and no two people's fertility journeys look the same. Don't feel like you're not having success because your journey might look different than somebody else's. I would want healthcare providers to know that the small things matter more than you think. The language you use, the forms you use, the way that you explain things, they all add up. When someone feels seen and respected, it really changes the whole experience. At the end of the day, I really think it all comes down to individualized care. When the provider takes the time to really interact and get to know the person instead of applying a one-size-fits-all kind of approach, I think ultimately it leads to safer, better care. Throughout the process, I was often misgendered, and multiple occasions the staff would assume that Madison was a patient and not me. And I think that it's really important to understand that, I'm already going through a very vulnerable, invasive medical process. And I think with constant corrections and having to correct people's assumptions, it can be very exhausting.
I think it really goes beyond language as well, down to what really is infrastructure. I mean, we've encountered a lot of clerical and administrative errors when gender markers maybe don't match because the gender marker is assumed to be female when in fact on your health card it is male. And it's just created a lot of really barriers to care and genuine confusion at an administrative level that we've had to correct. So just another level of advocacy and really labor on our end that makes accessing these things extra difficult. There were even a few times when Taylor was given a form typically given to people assigned male at birth that would be asking irrelevant questions not pertinent to our experience. So they would ask things like, do you know your sperm count level? And they were obviously not a form meant for someone assigned female at birth. And it really just created a barrier to accessing care in those beginning stages that really didn't have to be there.
I think if I could tell one thing to clinicians or people providing care to trans patients, I would really want them to know that if you know one trans person, you really only know one trans person. Everybody's fertility goals and fertility journey are different, and that also applies to trans people. And not all trans people are the same or want the same things. I think it's really important that you don't make assumptions and just ask.
Although we're still just at the beginning of our fertility journey, we're very excited to be beginning our family.
And there's no one else I'd rather be going through the process with.